Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Wednesday, September 2nd. Now, I've got a pretty big package waiting to be delivered today, so I may pause this stream at some point just to make sure it gets brought in, but it's also kind of pointless to sit around and wait for a delivery. My computer, some of my computer parts are coming in. It's gonna be more work than I'd like. At some point, Windows took away an easy transfer program they had, and I could just remove the SSD from my current computer and shove it into the new computer. Cross my fingers and hope everything works. It probably would work with some level of stability, but it wouldn't be particularly clean or wise to do it that way. You might mess up my current setup on my current computer, which this computer needs to be a backup for the current one in case something goes wrong. It also would, I'm going from an Intel to an AMD processor and a whole new generation of everything else, so that would be kind of the wrong way to do things. And while I haven't done too much craziness on my computer and my current computer is not even that old, a fresh install would be fine. I'm not one of these crazy people that got up to the point where they were doing a fresh install of Windows once a year or once a month. Maybe there was somebody out there doing it once a month even. But there is certainly an idea that it's probably been 5 years, and so a new install, just because the next computer probably will be about 5 years old or older and still be usable. Hopefully it'll be a lot longer than 5 years. Let's go ahead and replace this. I haven't been doing any of this. I've been uploading stuff. The thing I want to point out here is that the score rewards just kind of disappear. So you've got to, on the last day of the month, just make sure you come in here and claim all the rewards, or you just don't get them. And there's a danger to that. And this is just reset now, and it wants us to continue working our way up to potentially getting 10,000 score. Also, we can see we have an upcoming card pack tickets that we're getting this expansion this month, which I guess does indicate something to us that the new card expansion is coming. So no more goofing around, I think, for purchasing things. Here we have no longer the Code Geass skins and art and all of that. They're instead emphasizing, well, I think it's the Bahamut characters again, or just a weird combination of characters, which probably means that also the sleeves that would have been available for Code Geass, if there were any sleeves like that, they've come and gone too. So come on, we're gonna have network trouble already. Let's go back to the title. We'll try that. Let me just double check. Make sure I don't have anything open. Nope, doesn't seem like it. So yeah, I've been slowly trying to work on the uploads and getting everything scheduled, and I hopefully will move on, finish that. At a certain point for the new computer, I'm going to have a cutoff point, and we'll try a few things. Like, I'll have to have all the videos and stuff uploaded from one computer just so I can be finally done with everything on the old computer and then work onto the new computer. I assume these tickets are just going to be these tickets. So I don't think they're going to magically change into the next expansion. So next expansion will be the point where it would probably make a lot of sense to, as early as possible, think about getting as many cards as possible. Although at a certain point, maybe I should just try and get Fortune's Hand to the max 400 too. That will also be a consideration. Yeah, and I guess as this is, there's not a lot to account for. I've been playing some Battleship Brigade. It's still a really extremely slow game that also feels like it's a little short. I'll probably wrap that up. We did this on screen where we did Fate Trigger with the 1 characters. We did all that gameplay. Seriously, what's going on? Setting yourself up for a new computer install is still a bit of a hassle. There's fewer things every time, I would say, that you need to install with Windows 10. But things like 7-zip and the drivers and GeForce Experience, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, those things still very much in vogue. I built a new Shadowcraft deck, so I did actually do something extra, but as far as the accountability section, that's pretty much it. I'm pretty much going to have to give up, and have given up on the idea of playing Shadowverse every day. That's just way too much time. So some of these daily quests will just be lost.
Target acquired.
And we can also see that in the idea that exists here, where there are a rather high number of games that they want you to play all the time. So I made this Shadowverse Shadowcraft deck, which they probably shouldn't have had a Shadowcraft name for the leader when the game is called Shadowverse. That's confusing. And what I did is I filtered it pretty much down to the unique to Shadowcraft abilities, which are Burial Rite, Necromancy, and Reanimate. And then I looked at those unique cards and built a deck around that. Now, does that mean this is a particularly good deck? I don't think so, because I bet there are some neutral cards that you could balance into this idea that would be about as good or better. But it is a way of building a deck, as I'm still learning to build decks, to focus on the specialities of each of the leaders and try and take that for a thing. Let's see. Three damage to an enemy follower. Summon this. Destroy a follower, both reanimate 3.
Time to retreat. We won't give him an inch. It's time to retreat.
Well, I don't know if that helped anything, but we're doing that. What I've resolved to say so far about Battleship Brigade is actually it's in a weird way a fetish game, in the sense that it should be over focused on food and It should be have like either real world Instagram food pictures or lovingly animated giant pictures of the menus and the foods that's being cooked. It should just be so obsessed with that, and it really just isn't. So instead, the game seems to constantly want to put you in a position where you're just talking to one of the four characters, and they're not really saying anything or doing anything. And it's not like the story is saying anything or doing anything. So it just comes off as like a bad visual novel that is trying to sell itself as a food game or a puzzle game, when the puzzle system so far has not shown itself to be particularly good or complicated. In the parodying or directly ripping off of Iron Chef is not enough in my book to justify what's going on. Right. Let's see.
I'm not a quack. You'll see.
So yeah, this whole thing is just about getting as much shadows as possible, and you can almost do it with this deck. You're not doing a great job, though, with the cards I have. I still need more cards, probably for all the characters. But yeah, so far 3 or 4 hours into Battle Chef Brigade, it's a disappointing experience. I wish it was just faster and just threw you into the battles and just explained itself. It seems like every single day is just another tutorial to another thing, and I'm only like 5 days in 3 or 4 hours, and so maybe after that first act you will know everything, and then nothing new will be introduced, and it will just be challenge after challenge after challenge. There are like daily challenges, so I could see that becoming a thing, but I don't know if the game is really good enough that you would want to play the daily challenges or do the puzzle sections without some kind of story, even though you're not getting a very good story anyways. It's just, in every aspect, it feels a little bit lacking. No reason to delay talking about the news, so let's go here. We have Cornflake Crisis, which looks like it's a platformer where you play as a cornflake that says it's 100% hand drawn. Let's see. It is from somebody who's made something else that was reviewed positively. It's $8.99 English. I'm willing to put this on the fall list. Unfortunately, I did not log into Steam, so we'll have to leave that just open. Leave all the tabs open, and that will be certainly a big issue with trying to see this. If you do Burial Right 2, gives all other allies the ability to attack 3 times this turn. 2, 4, 6. Can we do that? 10th turn or later, I could do that. Meanwhile, best move is just to do this.
I'll show you.
A clean cut is all. Forget the anesthetic.
Why can this not attack?
Forget the anesthetic.
Can't attack. Interesting. Why does that character not have the ability to attack? Did they put a spell in it? I don't know. It's not really worth mentioning, but Yandere Simulator has put out the first like major boss that he introduced as a concept a couple years back as being the line in the sand that he needed to cross before he released the demo. So now he has something he's calling a demo out. There are 7 other bosses that I think he wants to add. And it really just kind of boils down to, if you think he's just kind of incapable of finishing a project, you can look at it easily and say, oh, he's just once again established a thing as the thing that needs to happen, and and he'll just change the rules later on, and he'll establish the next thing as the thing that needs to happen for the game to be finished. Remember, it is worth mentioning that Yandere Simulator in the last couple of years came out and said that all his work, which is probably approaching about 10 years now, has just been a vertical slice and not a full game in development, which is just ridiculous. And the whole thing's ridiculous. He's just stringing people along. He's stringing himself along, and as somebody who's done projects that he should have abandoned a lot earlier, I can definitely see that in Yandere Dev, the developer of Yandere Simulator. Let's see.
This head can't be taken.
But your 5th, 7th, or 9th time this time, invoke this card, then return it to your hand. When this leaves play, at the end of your turn, summon a leech. Interesting. Alright, well.
Hey, don't run.
That means next turn, if I have a second character I can do Burial Rite on, I can give all of these characters the ability to attack 3 times this turn. Which, in theory, being able to attack 3 times this turn would be like a 1-hit kill. 4, 8, 12 here, plus another 3 is 15, plus another 6 is 21, plus another 3 would be 24, plus another 6 would be 30. So 30 damage potentially, although actually I would have to get rid of a couple of people, so like killing this one and killing this one would be fine, but also you have to have 2 characters in your hand, so there's a lot of ifs there. See what this does in general. Okay. Summon a zombie. Deal 3 damage. Draw a card. Okay. So let's do this. Get rid of this. Deal 3 damage to this. And then do this.
Come out wherever you are.
Then I don't want to do this because then I can't play that. So I probably have too many of those cards in the deck. Next game we have on Steam here is called 2 Seconds to Starlight, with a bunch of misspellings in that. Forever My Diamond. This looks like this is some kind of cell phone visual novel game that's been being drawn by somebody who has kind of a unique art style. Like, wouldn't say I hate it. It just seems kind of inconsistent. It's tagged as LGBTQ+ and cute. It's free. And it's English only, so yeah, if that interests you, that's fine. And in that process I lost. So yeah, if we want to do a quick comparison to my previous Shadowcraft deck, we're in a weird position where I need to keep on playing, but because I just kept a rank, you don't like lose it at the end of the month, seemingly. You lose it at the end of a season, or maybe you don't even lose it at the end of a season. It puts me in this weird position where you're just going to be balanced always against competition. You're not going to have an experience that you typically would have in a collectible card game, where you, at the beginning of the month, you get knocked back down a little bit, and you can get a lot of victories and have fun for the beginning of the month, and then by the time you're at the end of the month, everybody is really trying hard to win. There's never kind of a fun, like, cooling off period, it seems like, by this system. It's just serious ranked gameplay all the time, which then again makes it really weird that you are not capable of kind of having that fun experience when you're playing unranked, which I should probably be playing unranked, if it doesn't really matter. Like, I should right about now just say, hey, let's give up on trying to get a rank score and let's just play unranked all the time and get the daily victories that get the temporary gems, even though we're not really doing anything with the temporary gems other than potentially saving them up for the next expansion. Okay. The problem with the burial rite feature, more than anything, is this. You can't. You have to know which character is a good character to bury, and there's a few characters that react very well to being used in burial rites, but a large amount of them that don't matter, and they just becomes like, can you play a Necromancy 6 to get a level 6 character? And if you know that, should you have then put a level 6 character in the graveyard, as it were? Although I guess there is no graveyard in this game. Let's see. Matsuri has the Famitsu review scores. Let's see. I feel like all of these are old and scores. Like Chinese Parents 33 out of 40, Fall Guys 34 out of 40. So Fall Guys is really just a point above an average good game. Never Again for Switch is 26 out of 40, so that's pretty bad. Out Buddies DX is 30 out of 40, that's pretty bad. Project Cars is 33 average. Showrunner is 32 out of 40. You can also definitely still see a significant decrease in games. Japan apparently is having a second round of COVID, which I wouldn't be surprised if that happens to a lot of people. I wanted to mention this. Major Nelson tweeted out this game as much as he promotes all games. Roommate's visual novel is now available for Xbox One for $15.99. This looks like it's a pretty low effort, not terrible looking, but pretty low effort looking Western visual novel. And I would have to think playing a visual novel, particularly on a console, is questionable at best. Like, I don't think you get any real benefits for playing visual novels on PC other than the fact that with PC you have Windows, and with Windows you have Steam, and with Steam you have access to thousands of other visual novels. And there might be some older DOS-based visual novels that you might want to go back and play. Although, I don't know if anybody actually does do that. Let's see. Steal cards is not a really useful ability. Matsuri has an article, ReZero Starting Life in Another World, The Prophecy of Throne has some key visuals.
This is your face.
So, this might be based off the next season of ReZero, where I don't know what happened in the anime, but I think it was pretty impactful, something along the lines of this character's memories are altered or different, and everybody else's character memories in the world might be altered or different. So, kind of a sort of soft reboot, also, but not quite that. I'd also call it more of a. I'd say it's more of a. Let's see. 3 damage to an enemy follower.
To a miracle. Where's your sense of romance?
Clash. So yeah, this does 3 damage first. But what's the difference between Clash and Follower's Strike? Because I've seen both characters.
You'll accept me, won't you?
And then it took away the pop-up as soon as that character got killed. Which, that's not helpful if I was reading. Since I was reading. 6 to reduce the cost of all the cards in my hand by 2. That's not a terrible idea. TechCraft has an article here. GameSpot has been criticized for National Guard promotion. What day was this? Not dated. Earlier today, whenever this was written. Didn't take it for that. GameSpot tweeted a promotion in conjunction with the Army National Guard. The tweet invited players to visit GameSpot for a video that would be hosted by Staff Sergeant Murray. Okay.
I'll show you. You're a fan too?
The exact quote here is, I don't know why they even
My time has come.
Who's this character? Mino Crafty Reaper. She's talking gamer speak. Or meme speak. The exact quote here says, join us as Staff Sergeant Murray from the Army National Guard gives us the highlights from Gamescom 2020 presented by National Guard. Okay.
Your end has been foretold.
I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps... No, I don't see why the U.S. Army National Guard would be welcome or allowed to advertise Gamescom, a Germany-based gaming event.
Only death can sate this hunger.
The tweet was followed up by an official GameSpot channel stating players can learn more about the Army National Guard by visiting National Guard esports website. Both tweets have since been deleted, were met by vicious backlash on social media, with many angry that GameSpot would promote the National Guard in their esports page. This mostly from the recent troubles with the U.S. Army and other branches of the armed forces online. Many have accused the U.S. Armed Forces for using platforms like Twitch to help with Army recruitment, and I don't know why that's even an accusation. Clearly that's what their charter is and what their intent is. Like they aren't. The army is not doing it out of the love of esports or any just magnetism, if generosity in their heart. So I don't see why there's an accusation that needs to be lowered to the phrase accusation even.
Fighting is so sorrowful.
Okay.
Feel
Strike.
me.
Would do 2 damage to all enemies, but I can't win here, so I've lost. Now, in all fairness, if it's the Army National Guard that is a different department under the U.S. Army, then, and I imagine there is probably a lot of bureaucracy and disconnection between the National Guard's esports and the Army
Death's nothing.
in general's Twitch page. And I think there definitely is a perspective you can have where there's not any reason for you to mentally, as a United States citizen, want to support any division of the Army or the military or the government at all when you have like a overly militarized, in part because of the bloated Army budget, local authorities in the form of the police. So I imagine there is a lot of like defund the police sentiment that can just also be 100% copy and pasted to defund the military. Although most people wouldn't actually say that out loud, and it wouldn't really happen. And in all fairness, as stupid as it is, until world peace is somehow magically achieved, there is just enough potential threats to the United States out there that the military probably should have some funding, even though the U.S. funding is huge. I guess if you take it from the perspective that the United States should not do proxy wars and they should just defend their own borders and not be cared about anything else that happens around the world, then yes, we could have a smaller military, but the proxy wars have already been started regardless who started them, so they already exist, and surrendering there could definitely destroy supply lines and destroy allies. And yeah, it does unfortunately come down to the argument that often gets made is, yeah, sure, the US went into this Middle Eastern country or this country somewhere around the world, they made a mess of that country and destabilized it horribly, or they at least helped make a mess of the country and destabilize it horribly, but now that they're there, if they were to leave and just immediately pull out, the countries would collapse again, and even more chaos and stuff would happen, so bad things would happen to citizens of those countries. A great example of that, I saw one Middle Eastern country literally just handed down a double death sentence and like 78 lashes to a person who dared speak against the ruling regime. And there's probably a lot more details and nuance to that story, but yeah. But to get back more on topic, I think more than anything, this is just another example of GameSpot probably wanting to stay in their lane and not advertise with products that are controversial. For as much as products like Coca-Cola and the advertisers on YouTube don't want to be on controversial videos, at a certain point, like YouTube AdSense also doesn't want to have products that are controversial. So, like, when I was seeing ads for, like, if you're seeing ads for scams on YouTube, which that doesn't happen too often, or at least not so obviously, then you don't want that, because that hurts the confidence in clicking on an ad in general on YouTube. And there definitely are a lot of misleading ads still on YouTube. Arknights is kind of a great example of that, where the games literally look nothing like the commercials. Moving on, speaking of misleading, updated a misleadingly titled Biohazard Village has quietly launched on Steam. Now this is an interesting idea in the sense that that Biohazard, from like Capcom's perspective, I'm sure Capcom thinks they own the copyright to the phrase Biohazard. I would say probably in Japan even they don't really own the right to the phrase Biohazard, even in video games specifically. So if this were to actually go to a court case, I think, but like Capcom might find themselves in trouble, because the phrase Biohazard is just such a generic phrase, whereas Resident Evil at least is not a generic phrase, in the sense that if you go through a hospital and look at a lot of the labels and signs around there, you will see the word Biohazard all over the place. You won't see the word Resident Evil anywhere in any building or outside in the real world, other than things related directly to Resident Evil, the video games, or the movie spin-offs or things like that. Capcom needed a long time ago to realize this, and they needed to have put their own personal name in front of it and their own pride in front of it a little bit. It wouldn't have been a bad idea if it was Capcom's Biohazard the whole time. It wouldn't have hurt if they had started the series as Raccoon City or RC's Biohazard, so then you have a very unique title. But yeah, almost certainly the game itself, and we'll look at it later, but almost certainly this game is probably just a cheap ripoff of the concept, or the title at least, of Biohazard. Man, we're just getting bad internet today all together. Like here we can see a dark screenshot image, and I can't really make out this character. Biohazard Village. The new Biohazard game is called Village, by the way, so yeah, clearly this is name confusion. Perhaps in the DMCA themselves, they will have a better claim if this is supposed to be like Elite Claire Redfield, and you get achievements called Biohazard 4, Biohazard 5, and then TechRaptor goes, how did this get approved? And at a certain point this is a different argument than what we've seen against Steam's libertarian idea. Let's see. Justia's Records, I guess that's some kind of website, shows that the Biohazard trademark in gaming category has essentially been abandoned due to a failure to respond or a late response. So yeah, they don't have a trademark.
Too slow.
Although copyright would be a little bit different, but I'd say Biohazard is probably too generic to even have a copyright. And I'm applying American copyright and trademark law to Japanese situation here. And this is in part the problem with the DMCA in general, because what is happening here is DMCAs are really supposed to only be through US law, so the idea would be that Capcom of Japan would have to either through Capcom of America have filed a trademark and copyright in the United States, but then there is some ridiculousness, and this is the continued problem with a growing and working towards a late stage world economy is the idea of countries supposedly supposed to honor the copyrights and patents of other countries, which that will just never work because there's conflicting interests. Resident Evil Biohazard is trademarked. Trademark's primary legal purpose is to avoid the creation of confusion, and in this case I think confusion definitely is a case. Says apparently they've actually played the game. It has bare bone gameplays near a total lack of challenges and several technical issues. They released a game a week ago called Panic Station, a horror action PvP that also happens to be a single player game. This also happens to be a game named Panic Station VR on Steam that was created by a team of students from Korea. So, okay. And then they've reached out to Valve, and Valve maybe will respond, but I bet they won't. They should just reach out directly to Gabe Newell and see what the response is, but he'll probably just send them off to talk to somebody else. So yeah, it is a challenge, certainly, to curate a game, and apparently the game is now not accessible on Steam. I would suspect that is probably because of the DMCA and nothing else. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see it come right back up in a short amount of time, because I'm not sure that they really do have a claim here in a weird way, and this really is oddly a example of a game system, a system and setup that what Capcom wants to happen here is they want to be the big company, and they want to have the laws written for them and work for them, and thus they want to do that in such an extreme way that they are actually capable of being lazy, because that's the truth. That's what they've been, is lazy, by not just putting Capcom in the front of their title or creating a better name. And they've been lazy in just the development of Resident Evil games for large sections of time. They've been lazy in the names, like Resident Evil 7 is just called Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 5, 6, 4 just called those numbers. They don't even have a subtitle to them. And if they had just not been lazy, then there would be kind of a consistent naming convention that would have made more sense.
The forest was my teacher.
And so it would be a lesson worth teaching Capcom if they came back and said, no, actually, somebody can make a game called Biohazard Village because it's such a generic title.
Disappear. Like
Like a roar.
But almost certainly, I would guess the law will side with. Like, almost certainly, I'm assuming the law will side with the big company that can
Otohime.
just outspend the other side. And
It won't be long now. Time to see what I can do.
moving on, we have a game here that's just Asian letters. Looks like it's a Chinese RPG that's a little bit card based. Well, so half card based or card based. It's free to play with in-app purchases. It's English and Chinese. I don't really have a full confidence that it actually supports English, and yeah, there's nothing there of interest. So
You'll never hurt Otohime.
let's see, what do we want to do here?
You'll never hurt Otohime.
Just
You'll
clear
never
the
hurt Otohime.
field.
Otohime. I lost?
Touhou, brother.
At your service.
Bop and roll.
Oh, come on!
Let me see if I can see if my package actually, yeah, it's just been delivered. Okay, well, I'll play this game and then I'll go get it. I think that will be the easiest way to do this. Open Critic has a article here. Dead by Daylight is receiving a graphical overhaul, which, like, Dead by Daylight is which game?
Yikes. Tough crowd.
This ends here.
That's the question. Is Dead by Daylight, I think it's the game where it's a asynchronous game where one person plays as the
May all life prosper and be blessed.
No one gets past me.
like one person plays as a monster, and the others people are trying to save the day and escape in general from the monster. Yeah, and it's just one of those asynchronous ones where
Let's let ourselves
you have to be careful. Next we have a game on Steam. Well, I just can't play asynchronous games because you'll just have a different experience. There's nothing to criticize here. Fort Golf looks like it's a almost marble maze, or yeah, kind of puzzly experience. $4.99 English only. I don't see anything here in these screenshots that are going to be particularly interesting. And I'm about to lose. Let's see. We can do this.
Don't call me
We
short.
can do this. We
We
can do this.
The light.
Come on!
And then
Glory.
it heals me back up. Gamatsu has an article here, according to Bloomberg. So an article from another article, which according to Bloomberg is probably just Jason Schreier. AT&T is no longer looking to sell Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment. AT&T reportedly determined the games division was too valuable to be sold, which that's a weird determination. Like, I guess the idea is it's too valuable to be sold at the moment because they'd have to sell it at a discount. Otherwise, why not take the money and run? Particularly if you're AT&T, and you don't really know how to run a business like that. Meanwhile, I will point out that just the fact that this merger was allowed to happen and that they were able to acquire Warner Brothers caused significant it really caused a significant amount of
I won't stop singing until there's
changes
royalties.
in the schedule of Warner Brothers games, because people thought they very well would get fired or projects would get canceled, or they just didn't care. So a whole bunch of projects got crammed through or approved that probably wouldn't have been crammed through or approved. And so now it's going to become a weird situation where whoever's left in charge is going to have to work with AT&T to determine whether or not they are going to continue development on some of these projects that were greenlit and shouldn't have been greenlit, or whether they're going to do something, change things up and make the whole experience
The pleasure was all mine.
different. Alright. So, yeah, I feel like I'm rambling there and not making too much sense. But yeah, I think we'll see a lot of Warner Brothers producing a lot of different things, and it will be the closest thing to a shift in who's in charge and policy with Warner Brothers over the next couple of years. And we'll see some things happen. Alright, so I'm going to put this on the idle screen, and I'll be back in probably just a few minutes. Be right back. Oops, I'm back. I didn't actually pause the video. I forgot that once I enabled studio mode, you have to hit the transition button, so that just sat there the whole time. I also noticed that I haven't been paying enough attention, so we have a person on the chat called Tazarin who says, "Hey, I did see your chat message. Let's get back to playing, I guess." And I guess you're kind of in a weird position where you just I want victories. So I should just play unlimited, because that's all I'm working on right now is just unlimited. I should probably be playing rotation, and I will have to build some new decks for rotation when the new expansion comes out. I think that will be the perfect time to do that, but yep. Yeah, I got my package. Or some of it. Oddly, parts are being delivered now, parts are being delivered later, but we'll be done with the stream before anything else shows up. And mostly I just didn't want it to get stolen or rained on, exposed to the weather. So while this is working, we've got a game on Steam here called Star Island, which has a lot going on here as far as effects, and that makes it feel kind of like it's
My blossoms
maybe a little too much of a explosion heavy
Come on.
shooter, side-scrolling shooter. Let's see, we have a character here, and in the trailer it does just like explode into large explosions. Small hold and gun boss rush minigame of casual difficulty for $2.24, and a whole bunch of languages. The visuals here don't look bad. The thing that kills me is just the large amount of explosions. And if it is just a boss rush, that means probably you're only on this one screen for the entire game. And yeah, I don't think there's enough meat on the bone for a game like that to justify being on the fall list. Tech Raptor. Alright, I'll take a free victory. I guess
I'm very sorry.
after I get 3 victories though, I should play ranked. Like there's no reason not to do that. Also, I bought a bunch of characters and I didn't enable any of them, so I need to go do that too. Tech Raptor has their cross promotion with Nutaku. They have a game here that says Magic Amy AMI DX lets you play with lewd magical girls.
I'll chill you to the bone.
It really does feel like just Nutaku in particular is buying games from some other site, and I imagine there probably are some other porn sites out there that they have done that, and there definitely have been porn ads that there were little JavaScript or Flash based not even JavaScript, like Flash based games out there, and I'd say the Nutaku games are better than Flash games, but not by much. I'm still playing the Simpsons Tapped Out clone game, College Days, from Nutaku, and but I've done almost everything in it, and I'm just wrapping up at this point, and yeah, there's not a lot there to say. It's not particularly interesting.
I am Solomon, the first mate.
This is weird because Solomon's card, you spell boost it to reduce the cost of this, but then you spell boost this cost to cause the highest potential character in your hand to, the highest potential character in your deck to come into your hand and be playable. So, theoretically, I guess on your 7th turn here, you might be able to play something that is a 7 cost character, but in actuality that's probably never actually going to happen. You're going to end up with playing 7 mana to pull a 3 mana card out of your hand, and I don't know if there's a specific way that would even work to your advantage. This is a total spell boost deck. See, next we have a game on Steam called Escape VR, which looks like it's a VR escape the room game with the standard horror asset flip gameplay stuff going on. Although I will say, at the very least, since this is a VR game, they've kept everything in the one room, and you can see there's a lot of stuff in this room to interact with, whereas if this wasn't a VR game, there would be a lot of stuff that you couldn't interact with, and it would just be window dressing. 1 damage to an enemy follower. Do this.
Darkness on this plane.
And then this.
Hey, how's everyone doing tonight?
And then do we want to evolve anything? Sure.
I'll lay a flower in your memory.
I've gotten down to the point where I'm not going to attack anything with last words unless it's draw a card and the character has 9 and your opponent has 9 cards. Open Critic has an article here. There was kind of 2 different stories, one from Ubisoft and one from Madden, in which people were upset. I think there's maybe more stories than just 2 actually. But this story is following fan backlash. Madden 21 patch addresses several on-field issues. Oh, one of the things I wanted to also mention in the accountability section, and I forgot about it, is I'm using a program called Yumi, Y-U-M-I, which probably stands for something like yet another universal multi-boot installer. It allows you to set up easily a USB thumb drive to boot into multiple versions of Linux and the Windows installer ID, and just put a bunch of things on there. In the real shame about it, I think, more than anything else, is that it was just so easy to do, and I just don't have enough. I just don't have enough different versions of Linux that I want to fit onto a 32 gigabyte thumb drive, which isn't a problem. You just use the rest for other kinds of files, certainly, but even having a Windows 10 install disk, and Linux Mint Debian edition, and CentOS, and a live version of CentOS, which is a little redundant. Like, the only thing I didn't put on it was like Ubuntu, which Ubuntu at this point is, I think, not really worth installing. I also was able to put like a boot repair small Linux thing on there, and several other just assistive things that might be helpful. And through it, I did find out that there is a specifically made for the blind version of Linux that was called VNux and then merged with Sonar, but even in that, there's not really a good reason to use that, because Debian itself has accessibility pages and setups, so you are better just running Linux Mint Debian Edition or Debian itself, or some special variant of Debian. And I would say, for the most part, everybody should use Debian, but there's a lot of people with a lot of history and experience of using Red Hat, and so they use the open source version, or Red Hat compatible Linux of CentOS instead. And there may be a couple other reasons.
Enough of this indulgence.
There may be a couple special reasons why you would want a special version of Linux, but not too many. And I suppose I'll just keep this thumb drive somewhat handy, although I probably won't use it as much as I imagine in my head I might use it a lot of times. This could give me an 8 for 7, or I can do this,
Darkness on this plane.
which will give me 9. This gives you the highest cost follower. They cost X play points or less. So one more spell boost, this will give me a 10, which, unless I have something that costs more than 10 mana, that would be crazy. But there is one card that does cost more than that. There's really nothing I have to say about Madden 21 patching itself, though. I still don't think the Madden series is worth
The darkness doesn't end.
really playing.
Let ice
This is slightly interesting Gamma Sutra article. Big Fish Game has laid off 250 staff.
It's impossible to change fate, and yet
Question I guess you'd like to know, and they won't say, is how many staff they had in the first place. It's worth noting that it's not mentioned in the letter. These layoffs fall a mere day after the approval for a settlement for a class action lawsuit over Big Fish Casino that sees Big Fish Games' current and previous parent companies on the hook for a combined $155 million in settlement. So we may see Big Fish Games go out of business because they did something naughty. And that may be an issue. Let's just do 10 damage to this guy. Sounds like they had some casino gambling going on. And I guess if Big Fish Games did go out of business, all their little hidden object games would probably get purchased by somebody. And if we saw them listed at much more reasonable prices than $13 each on Steam, that would be nice. Does that inherently mean I'm going to go and play more hidden object games? No. Does that mean maybe if I just go wild on spending, I might buy a bunch of Big Fish hidden object games? Maybe, but probably not even then. So, but for people that do like hidden object games, this is potentially good news, although it may be potentially bad news too. So, I bought some outfits so I could change this character to this. And I can change this to this.
Ready for action.
So we now have at least one different outfit for each of these characters, although it is
Can an old fellow get some peace?
probably important to double check and make sure that there was only one page here.
The skies are all mine.
And compared to some of these basic characters, like Rowan is a very boring to look at character. I'd much prefer to play as Forte. And then here we can adjust the issue with Luna. And you have a Skeleton Knight. And here you can go more anime and play Vanya.
Want to be a vampire too?
Then we could switch to Garuda.
Beyond shall be safe.
And I don't recognize any of these characters as being from anything. I know I bought them, so I guess the question would be, what did I bought them from Rage of Bahamut, which either this is a mobile game I don't recognize, which maybe it is, or this was the expansion. Let's see, if we go back to the shop and we say buy cards, I don't know if I'm ever going to have any premium currency to actually spend on buying. Yeah, you have Rise of Bahamut. It was just an expansion from what it looks like. But it's an interesting expansion in the fact that there seems to have been no main story around it. So, They went hardcore with that. Let's see, ranked, unlimited, let's try this. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Hellpub, which probably is a Chinese RPG if I was to guess. It definitely looks like an NES RPG. $1.59, Chinese only. Yep. This is what decades of not allowing any consoles to be imported has done to China, is that they've just got decades and decades of experience making Famiclones and Famicom style games that they don't even compete for the most part with half of their offerings. TechRept has an article, third Marvel Adventures War Table reveals weekly rates and Kate Bishop. If anybody really cares about the Marvel Adventures game, I would suggest you stop caring, because it's not going to be anything. It's literally just never going to turn into a game that's playable. What best bet scenario? They take the Marvel characters that they've animated and the assets, they hand it to a new team and say, hey, make us a single player experience using some of this as your starting point, and maybe we'll get a slightly quicker release to a different Marvel game. Because at the end of the day, assuming they use something like Unreal Unity, the animations, the skins, things like that should be fairly intercompatible. This is a kind of somber and interesting article. TechRaptor has this. Valambeer has announced its closure on its 10th anniversary. Although the game that they said they were going to make called Ultra Bugs is still going to launch. And they've also released another demo that they never got anywhere from it. Valambeer made Luftrausers and Nuclear Throne. Neither one of those games were major successes. And I think it's mostly a company between two people. And so they just decided to kind of call it quits. At a certain point, it's almost just the equivalent of someone announcing their retirement. More than a company announcing that it's a failure. But that does really come down to what is a company really not really. Corporations are not people. Let's just say that first and foremost. Anybody that claims that is full of BS. But they are supposed to be these kind of eternal engines that just keep going for generation after generation after generation. At least that's the thought of it. Something that would outlive and outlast a single person. Like if a CEO died of a corporation, that doesn't inherently mean that the corporation then shuts down and stops doing business, whereas a sole proprietorship or just a small company with a few employees, that pretty much would be the case. So when you have what are the equivalents of indie game developers just putting their indie game development team under an LLC, a limited liability corporation, which I assume it was, what does that really give them besides legal protection? Not a lot. Like, at the end of the day, when the couple of people that worked at Valambeer decided that they had no more reason or no more desire to work together or work under that name, at least, the corporation falls apart. And in particular in this case, it clearly was such a unsuccessful business that they weren't even in a position where they could sell it. Because I could see somebody out there, I could see EA swooping in and paying a cool $500,000 to these people and saying, okay, we'll buy your games and we'll and we'll enter them into our license. I can see Microsoft also buying them, just saying, hey, well, we'll buy not your talents but your back catalog, and we'll put it all for free on Xbox Live. That yeah. But then again, it may have just been a case of apathy on the two creators too, because maybe they didn't want to go through 6 months of negotiation, and you really can't just have a handshake deal. I think Microsoft is probably a great example, though. They bought Minecraft from Notch when he didn't want to be a big person in celebrity. So let's see. This summons the avatar of desecration. We want to do this and this, and then attack here. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Blueness of a Wound, which just seems to be a kind of high artistic depiction, although a lot of it also looks like it's kind of hand drawn, just pencil scratches. Yeah, I would be willing to more call this a artistic style attempt than just bad art. Concept art. I don't know what phrase I would use concept art for. It's $9.99, English full audio. I'm gonna put this on the follow list and see what people have to say about it. It's tagged as a horror adventure, but I imagine it's more kind of a just straight linear, almost visual novel. Okay. What can we do here? This, I think we'll destroy this. There we go. And then this and this. Hit that one. Evolve that one. Hit that. Video game 24/7. The Control expansion AWE is out today alongside Steam releases. I saw a little bit of footage of this AWE. They introduce new characters, new enemies. There are now sequences where you're, instead of talking to the hotline through the phone, you're seeing Alan Wake literally describe what's happening for what it looks like. But at the end of the day, I don't think the game changes much. So I think you still are kind of just playing more Control. And certainly it would be a case where
Looks like I won.
Where if I was going to re-buy Control on Steam and get the DLC, I'm not even sure now would be the right move, because would that be getting the Ultimate Edition that guarantees an upgrade on the PC version? Because I don't think there was any talk of that. I think actually it's kind of the exact opposite of that. Let's just play one of each character. Since I enabled each of the new characters, we can listen to their voice files a little bit. So yeah, I don't know if there's a major benefit there, and it'll be interesting to see if in the next 6 weeks Control comes out and says that they've gotten a major increase in sales. Next we have a game on Steam called Short Creepy Tales 7 PM. It's tagged as a visual novel horror. It has this kind of papercraft art style around it, where the characters are these like paper cutouts. It feels like a very dirty Asian country. It does not. I don't want to immediately say China, but it does feel dirty and dark, and feels like there might be something here to this game. $4.99 English only. Once again, probably more because I was watching the video more than anything, and seeing how some of the video played. That is probably the best reason why I'm thinking I want to put this on the follow list, because the video shows the game in its actual play, where the screenshots make it look very less active, which that does certainly open up the door to the possibility that I have like ignored some games just because of their screenshots that didn't deserve to be ignored. That being said, there's plenty of fish in the sea when it comes to Steam games. Next we have a game called SCP The Foundation. I think this has been out in early access, and it's still in early access, and it's free to play, so I don't know why this has once again been relisted. It says it's September 2nd, but it's still tagged as early access. There was definitely another game like this based on SCP, based on Control. In a funny way, the fact that there's been... This is a totally different game than the other SCP game I saw. And it looks worse, too. And it's mixed, so I'm not going to put it on the fall list. It does, though, make an interesting argument for DLC. Like, if it is 6 months to a year is all it takes to make something that is sort of a ripoff of a game that was hugely hyped and hugely popular. Like, one of the things I think the Steam ripoff artists, the people who are just trying to make games that look like other famous games, which there aren't too many of those really, one of the things I'd say they're failing to do, though, is why aren't they releasing Cyberpunk games at this moment? Like, there's been plenty of announcement and development around that, around Cyberpunk. It would totally make sense to put something out called Cyberpunk 3027, or since I think Cyberpunk 2037 is the name of the one that's coming out.
Should have been quicker.
But I also think you have to take into account that Control in particular is a ripoff artist just as much as anybody else is, because all Remedy did, I think it was Remedy that made Control, was rip off the SCP website, and so they're doing a pretty terrible job too. At least with that Alan Wake stuff, they were only ripping off the general concept of like some of the Stephen King stories. I would say that's pretty much what they were ripping off, is Stephen King stories, which I saw a trailer for The Stand, and I was surprised that they made it that far to actually have a trailer for The Stand with Whoopi Goldberg playing one of the characters, although I think she plays a character that probably only shows up for a short time. And the problem with The Stand is it's an incredibly long book, so it's going to have to be done as some kind of HBO miniseries. And even then it may still be too long. Yeah. And then if you go far back enough with Remedy, then their other games aren't that creative either. They're painkiller games. So at a certain point, if Remedy was to go out of business and they were to try to sell their back catalog, it would be probably not valued as high as it should be, because like Control can only go so far as ripping off SCP. Alan Wake can only go so far as ripping off
The fishies are dancing. Igard, Otohime.
ripping off the
One step closer to victory.
Stephen King books.
Never hurt Otohime.
That's about it. Like the director from Control as a character, Jessie, I believe is her name. I'm surprised I even remember it. And all the other characters in Control are not interesting enough characters to really make continued sequels in an entire series from. And Alan Wake is, I think, not really an interesting enough character to me.
Count on me, Risha. Retreat! Otohime.
Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Time Gap Puppies, which looks like a low-effort top-down twin-stick shooter for $1.39 English only. We're still getting those bad games. 15 or more allied followers have been destroyed this match. Invoke this. I wonder how many I actually had destroyed. Summon the Knight. Destroy it with at least 5 attack. So you can do that.
My blade of resentment.
Keep fighting!
And
You'll
then
never
we can
hurt
attack
Otome.
that. The voice logs don't really make sense once Otahime has already been killed. But whatever.
Fight together, everyone! For our future!
Next we have a game on Steam, Touhou Sky Arena Matsuri Climax.
You are
Japanese
done for.
still loving to use the word
I will
climax,
support the vanguard.
whereas
Carry on.
I'd say in the United States it pretty much has just become
Blade grows
a dirty
thirsty.
word. Yeah, this looks like one of those 3D Touhou games.
Ohime.
It's $31.99, really highly priced, Japanese full on you. I'm gonna put those on the follow list, but that price tag is high, and I'm still not really sure if there's enough of a concept there to justify.
Forward march! Raise everything!
Okay.
Oh no, you don't!
Alright, can we
You're
survive?
full of openings.
You wouldn't.
If I could have kept a couple more people on the field.
風はそこに吹く。
1+1+1 to all allied followers. See, this is a nice neutral card, which definitely is an argument against trying to build a deck just with class-specific cards.
Flames of vengeance!
Enemy or no, you did good.
Not getting a lot of lines of dialogue for any of these characters, particularly since I have the animations turned down. And yeah, I am just bouncing between C1 and C2. Shadowcraft has a review for a game called Cinders, which looks like a visual novel. See what the actual review is. Kevin, Victorian times type characters. Let's see, they gave it a 6.0. They said Cinders attempts to be a modern feminist take on a classic fairy tale, but poor writing and uninspired art leaves it smothered in ashes.
Oh, let me warm up for a
Pros are a plethora of story choices and
The
endings.
underworld.
Cons are bland art and music, poor writing, shoehorned feminism. Wow. If Tech Raptor is saying shoehorned feminism, it's really shoehorned feminism, because it's hardly like Tech Raptor is a super anti-SJW site. It's just not a hyper pro SJW site like so many other sites out there.
I'll be a talisman master someday.
I don't think my music software, the Nightbot on the chat, works anymore. I think maybe iTunes, or not iTunes, but Google, YouTube just stopped it from doing the thing it was doing before, or could just be that there's never enough chat posts, messages to justify it.
Hey, how's everyone doing tonight?
Let's see. We really haven't had a lot of news, but there is some. And ideally we want to get as much news covered today as possible so that we don't have a super long Friday. Ideally, I would like to see Fridays be the shortest day of the week as far as streaming.
Darkness on this plane.
Bump and roll.
Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. Microsoft continues to leak Xbox Series S, which, are they going to call it the XS? Because that would make better sense than Series S.
The corrupted
But
soul will
actually,
resurrect evil.
this is really bad because you take out these letters and you call it the Xbox SS, and you're making direct references to Nazi Germany at that point, whether you meant to or not. So the X as an X-ray S is a much smarter move than Series S. And frankly, Xbox, they need to just have one person on staff that cares about the name of their products. Just one person. Just one little visionary that says, hey, we're gonna call this. TechRaptor has an article here. This is interesting. India has banned PUBG Mobile and 117 other Chinese mobile apps. Now the question here to ask, is this banned because India is constantly at threat of conflict with China, and India doesn't like China and China doesn't like India, and unlike the Australia-Japanese situation where I think Australians just kind of, their politicians in particular, just kind of racist, and they kind of have a reason to be racist because of the history of Japan and Imperial Japan just being jerks to everybody, and they've pissed off everybody in Asia, and pretty much they pissed off everybody in the world. There's more active hostility between India and China right now, and there's more legitimate reason to have active hostility between India and China right now, whereas Australia is again just trying to ban anime, and that's about it, where India's trying to do its own thing and maintain its sovereignty, I think, more than anything.
Here we go.
Did I attack with this? If I have already attacked with this. The other thought, though, before I scroll down any further, could be this has very little to do with China and a lot to do with India just not wanting their kids to play PUBG, and yeah, I can see that, but it is a little surprising that if the Indian government does anything and actually accomplishes anything, they clearly really believe in it. So let's scroll down and see what the case is. Let's see. They were banned that are prejudicial to the sovereignty and integrity of India. Now, how is PUBG prejudicial? I mean, in the end, I think it's just because of protectionism. I'd say that the owners of PUBG are a Chinese company, and India wants their own games or no games to be sold, one or the other. Take your pick. They don't want to have the situation where if not by direct conflict but by economic conflict, China becomes more influential in India. And this is the exact same scenario that I see a lot of times happening in the United States and the rest of the world, as China tries to force its influence on a lot of other countries and try and change the laws and the way things are done and the way the citizens think in other countries, to the point where if China had their way, they would not let anybody around the world ever say the word Tiananmen Square.
The games of gods begin.
And many other things would be implemented. This is because India's Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has received complaints that the misuse of some mobile apps available on Android and iOS platforms, stealing and surreptitiously transmitting users' data in an unauthorized manner to servers which have been located outside of India. So it seems to be specifically they have laws saying the data can't leave this country, which that's not inconsistent with a lot of other countries too. Like, I'd say the United States is probably one of the exceptions there. This follows a previous TikTok ban. And so they're spinning as spying, and it's easy to go against the games and TikTok, things that kids like. But I think that's apparently it. Here's an image with the entire list. Let's see if we can see this image in a large enough format that I can actually read it. No. The answer to that is no, I cannot read it because it is too small text. But yeah. So they are mobile apps, so maybe PUBG is just one of the few games in the mix. That might also be a case. But I definitely have a hard time seeing this as an overreach step by India, because if anything, India may just be acting out of an abundance of caution, and there may be no there, but at the end of the day, there probably is something there. Unrelated country, but there was a story that I just heard about where a Russian spy, let's just call him that, tried to bribe a Tesla employer to put spyware in the Tesla factories, gigafactories that make, I think, the batteries. So there is economic warfare happening.
Darkness on this plane.
And it's ridiculous to try and deny that. Moving on, we have a Matsuri article. The Signifier launches October 15th on PC, early 2021 for PS4 and Xbox One. Signifier must be some kind of horror game. See a big robotic thing and computers. Kind of looks like it might be a VR game. But I'm having a real hard time figuring out what's supposed to be going in this. Is this a virtual reality you're walking around, or I don't know. Looks like it's some kind of horror game. 3 coexisting dimensions to explore. Move between realms to solve puzzles.
Darkness on this
Let's do
plane.
that. Then do another one of those.
Darkness on this plane.
Every challenge is part of a mystery that creates unique moments with no filter.
The games of gods begin.
Yeah, there's nothing here that indicates it's a VR game.
Ready or not?
But it does kind of look
For the
interesting.
closing number.
When it actually comes out, I'll put it on the fall list, but at the moment, kind of don't see a reason.
To the depths of the abyss, the darkness doesn't end.
If I could just do a couple of points of damage, I could win.
Darkness on this plane.
will not tolerate evil.
I am a god among gods.
This guy's, he's trying to power this guy up, and he's just done it. One hit kill strategy.
That's what I call a fight.
That's a different strategy, though. I haven't seen that card before. But also, I will say I'm not really paying a lot of attention, so... It's kind of hard to say anything about any of the cards or learn anything about any of the card games when I'm not really paying attention to that. Here we have a game on Steam called The Last Farm. In no way is this a game really even worth mentioning, other than I would say the concept of perhaps the last farm on a planet because all the land is blighted is something that may have increased my enjoyment of something like Stardew Valley if there was just a little bit more tension and necessity to succeed, where it felt like you could fairly easily in Stardew Valley just do a poor job or a just absolutely awful job and you could just start over or the next season. Xbox has come out with a new branding design for Xbox. New look with continuous compatibility. So just new labels for the next generation. Really, I think the only thing you'd ever want to buy that isn't just the official Microsoft controller would be something like this. And yeah, I could see maybe a headset making sense, or that compatibility controller if you have compatibility needs that Microsoft licensed and kind of pretends like they made it in-house. They have not really talked about that compatibility controller at all, which at the very least they should come out and mention whether or not that is guaranteed to work with the Xbox Series X. But there's really no reason to assume it wouldn't work. There's a lot of reason to assume it would. The thing I would say in particular is they should have at least one game that is specifically designed for use with the compatibility controller. Some kind of like drumming game, since it has those big buttons. And that would be interesting, at least. Lego has been releasing their Braille set of Lego bricks that have the tops of the Lego bricks in the dot patterns of Braille. One assumes this is the United States form of Braille and not the more European style Braille, because I think there's slight differences there. But even that Lego Braille set, I imagine, is really, really overpriced and not going to be available widely. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Raiders of the Lost Island, which has one of those trailers where they have just video footage of people playing the game. This looks low polygon, square and blocky type game, and it feels like it's probably a player versus player experience. They're selling it for $10.39. It kind of feels like it's just like a Mario Party clone, or the mini games of Mario Party clone. 2 damage all allies? No thanks. Okay.
There's a lot more where that came from.
I'll have to make sure not to evolve this guy. Matsuri has an article here. The Tokyo Game Show 2020 online official live stream schedule has been announced. Capcom, Sega Atlas, Koei Tecmo, Square Enix, and more will all be presenting something. I could probably scroll through all of this and tell you if they mention anything of importance.
The real battle begins.
It doesn't seem like any of these listings
Get kicked by a horse.
doesn't seem like there's anything really being announced here in the schedule. Just that these companies at these times will say something. Next we have a game on Steam called The Moon Relax, which is tagged as a space sim open world survival game with a creepy looking Japanese girl. Based on the open world on the moon. The problem with an open world on the moon is the fact that unless the moon in your story is going to be populated with a lot of buildings and things, it's just going to be a empty dust pit. Alright, let's go ahead and evolve
Ready
this
to witness my true strength?
and detect that. And this is from a developer called Indie Game Studio, which has a long list of negative and mixed reviewed games, which with that kind of traction behind you as a Russian English language game, this clearly doesn't need to be on the follow list.
Let us conclude.
Well, I certainly could have been tricked there to put it on the follow list. Techraptor has a review for Super Bomberman R Online. I bet they say 7.5 or lower. I can't imagine that this is actually a good Bomberman game. They give it a 6.0, and I think Techraptor has kind of increased their standards lately. Probably because there's not a lot going on in general.
Dare to disturb my domain?
My empress. Sleep with the fishes.
4, 6, 8.
How could you?
And this is Dragon Empress Otohime, which is different than the other Otohime character that we were playing with a different style of gameplay. Let's see, the pros are for Bomberman is classic Bomberman experience. Battle Royale mode is insanely fun and plenty of cool characters to choose from. The cons are it's lacking in content, not many people playing classic or Grand Prix modes. Some characters are overpowered as hell. Next we have a game on Steam here called Metal Horror Escape, which looks like it's a horror game, and it doesn't look visually polished enough to be worth it. It's early access for $8.99. It's English and Russian. See, next we have a game on Steam called Bright Paw, which looks like it might be a puzzle path game where you play as a cat. It looks like you have cards and you have to tell the cards, use the cards to maneuver the cat in a specific way. There might be a game there. $9.99, English full audio with several other languages being supported. I'll put that on the follow list. Okay. Can't be attacked if overflow.
Black wings are unbreak. Don't let me down.
Do that. And then let's go and put this on the field too. Next we have a game on Steam here called Snapshot VR. Looks like it's a low effort VR shooter game which, yeah, I'm not seeing anything interesting there. Early access, $19.99, online player versus player only, English language only, which for a online player versus player experience, perhaps you should make sure to support more languages. Matsuri has an article here. Square Enix has their online lineup. They will feature Babylon's Fall, Kingdom Hearts, Melodies of Memory, and more. Seems like, yeah, we've got an Avengers game, a Kingdom Hearts game, a Dragon Quest games, the Scarlet Grace collection. Seems like that's what that is. Don't know what that is. I really don't know what Babylon's Fall is. Don't know what that is. Don't know what that is. Don't know what that is. Here's another Dragon Quest game. Here's another Dragon Quest game. Almost certainly some of these Dragon Quests are spin-offs. Like Dragon Quest Walk is almost certainly a cell phone game only. Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. Something here. Don't know what that is. Don't know what that is. This is probably another Dragon Quest game. Don't know what this is. Square Enix music. Don't know what that is. Don't know what that is. So there's quite a lot. I guess if I'd scrolled down, I could have seen that there was names all for all of these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Dragon Quest games. Aurora Boys in the hand. Storm Summon a Dragon.
You are free, my darling.
There we go.
Welcome
That
No, don't let me
and
down.
that.
I envy you.
Like, usually they're going crazy with the Final Fantasy, but there's only 3 Final Fantasy games here. 14 Brave Exvius and a trading card game. And then there's only 1 Kingdom Hearts. There's a game called Manga Up, which I have no idea what that is. There's Romancing Saga Re-Universe, Square Enix Music, Toji no Miko, I have no idea what that is, and then War of Visions, another Final Fantasy game. So it's going to be heavy on what is it? Not Dragon Quest, is it? Yeah, Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest properties, and I don't know how many of those will really be successful and how many of those will actually end up coming worldwide and coming to the West. I would be willing to play the main story of Dragon Quest, the latest one. I'm not sure I'm even really willing to go further back in history and play the older ones, though. Because that would be like a 9-game commitment. Next we have a game on Steam here called the Cubidex of Brass and Wood, which seems like it's a single screen 3D Unity puzzle box game. It does seem like it's got puzzles in it though. They're a little bit low polygon, but I wouldn't say it's immediately a no-go. $4.99, English only. Much like the game The Room, although The Room had more polish, and but then also some of the puzzles on The Room, particularly the latest Room game that I played, The Room 3, that was very badly designed for imported to PC. And I don't know if there is enough of a reason to play the genre of 3D puzzle boxes in general as a concept. I guess it gets rid of the hidden object elements. For usually you'd have a hidden object game that would then give you a puzzle that would probably be something like a 3D puzzle box. But I would say both hidden object, a lot of the elements in hidden object games and almost all the elements in games like The Room probably should be integrated into other kinds of games where you have a standard basic gameplay loop of either fighting enemies or shooting enemies or doing something else. There.
Lands of wonder. Lands of marvels.
10 skeletons in your hand. Deal 6 damage to all enemies if you have at least 30 shadows. So there's a card that will give you 20 shadows. If you play this and this together, you can potentially
On the leaves of the
do 6 damage at the end of each turn, which still probably won't win the game for you. Next, we have a game on Steam here called The Light at the End of the Ocean. This is tagged as a point-and-click adventure. This is an interesting character designs. You have here what looks like a Native American character, and then a very pale, like Irish character. So, yeah, I don't know where these two characters would have met. But I'm questioning how long this game is. Unlikely friendship and loss of identity. $7.19, English only. There might be something there. Probably not, but maybe.
Saw that one coming.
On the leaves of the Isha tree.
Gamatsu has an article here. Katamari Damacy Reroll is coming to the PS4, Xbox One, November 19th in Japan. What was it originally for? It was first launched for the Switch and PC in 2018. Okay. I kind of had forgotten that there was a Katamari Damacy game. It's rated very positively. I should double check to make sure this is on my wish list. It's $29.99 though, and this might very well be one of those games that just never goes on sale. And I would like to play one Katamari Damacy game, but that's pretty much it. I don't think I need to go particularly deep into the realm of those games.
Saw that one coming.
Okay. Last words deal 2 damage.
On the leaves of the Isha tree.
Prepare yourself.
The speakers shall know Hush.
Consider my interest piqued.
Blood debts are paid in kind.
Next, we have a game on Steam called The Host, which looks like it's just a low effort, or at least low polygon 3D action game. It feels like somebody here really tried, but they just didn't have the artistic ability, because this isn't just a asset flip. Somebody here is trying to make a game, and maybe they thought they could make a game using basic art assets, and then they were going to swap out the art assets later, and they just didn't get any further than that. $10.99, 16 achievements, English only. I could see even thinking that way myself, of just saying, well, yeah, I could probably program a game and use free art assets, and then at some point, however, convince at some point convince somebody to replace the art assets and hire an artist to replace the art assets based on how good a game plays. And of course, I'd be wrong if I was to think that way, because that first impression is not going to get you more funding. you're gonna have to make your vertical slice or your pitch demo of a game look fairly good. And that's in the same way that there are so many trailers of games that have actually no code written for them at all that look amazingly good, and they're shown at things at conventions and presentations like E3, or at least like it used to be in E3. Next, we have a game on Steam. I'm a love interest in my childhood friend's reversed harem. So, are you playing as the male, who is a love interest of the female, who has several other males she might choose? I think that's the case. Reverse harem, in general, means something different, I think, to Japanese people than it would to people in the West. Like, in general, I would think a reverse harem would mean it's like a girl. No, that's not what I would think it means. What would I think it means?
Heaven's my workshop.
Honestly, I would think a reverse harem means it was a guy who had 5 female love interests that all hated him, or 5 enemies. That's what I would think would be reversed there. Whereas in Japanese, usually when they say reverse harem or reverse a lot of things, they mean we think so gendered wise that we think of a harem to be, and perhaps in their language, in Japanese, that's how it actually is pronounced and said. But they think harems to mean a group of female love interests, that are all interested in one guy. So reverse of that is a group of male love interests that are all interested in one girl, and then they would probably throw in the yuri and yaoi titles for gay stories. It did occur to me also that Yuri on Ice is like totally mistranslated, because it really is a yaoi story. It should be called Yaoi on Ice. But I guess the West was not ready for that title, or they didn't think the West was ready for that title.
Oh, let me take the lead.
Pop and roll. No interrupt.
Let's put another character on the field. As for what this game is, it's clearly a visual novel. It doesn't look amazingly well animated. It doesn't look terrible either. It's $9.99. It supports English only. There might be an argument for this, but I suspect no. I don't think that there actually is a story here. But I'll overuse the follow list and put it on the follow list, even though I could almost certainly just jump to the end. Alright. Go and play this. Evolve this. Hit this. This. And this. Yeah, we'll end the turn there. We're close to the end. We have about 10 or 20 more tabs, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of these I've already talked about, because I didn't get around to logging into Steam Monday and putting these on the follow list. Here we have a game on Steam called Iron Harvest, being published by Deep Silver. There was a game like this where it was walking tanks, and it got sued and had to change its name, but I don't think it's this game. So somebody's done the same idea. Like, the problem was that the name they chose, it wasn't really a problem with the content of the game. So they did in that case a rare instance of somebody just not doing enough research on the name. So.
Hey, check this out.
Now take a listen to this. Bop and roll.
Get that. Iron Harvest is $49.99. It has full English audio and full German. And I'll put it on the fall list. It looks like it's a real-time strategy game. And looks like there might be something to it. Worth playing. Although again, I would definitely would wanna see an improvement on that price. I would not want to pay that much. Next, we have a game on Steam called 9-9-Episode 3. It's tagged as a dating sim, visual novel. It's got the moe art style going on. Okay. Yeah, it looks very pretty, very nicely animated. It's been a while actually since we've even seen a nicely animated visual novel come out. This is from Sekai Project as a publisher. It's $17.99. Apparently there is a content warning. It's Japanese full audio. They want you to play episode 1 and 2 first, which probably would be a wise move there. That certainly would open up the door to understanding whether or not the game is worth playing. So let's see. 9-9 episode 3, 9-9 episode 3, 9-9 episode 3. Each of the 9-9 series. Okay, episode 2 is rated very positively. Episode 1 is rated very positively. So, yeah, I think ideally, episode 1 is also tagged sexual content. Ideally, I think I would want to make sure that the first episode is on the fall list or the wish list, and then if I play the first episode and I like it, which that's a big if, I'm gonna play any 1 damage to leader. Okay.
The night will be stained in blood.
Okay, can't really do anything. Yeah, part of the problem of building a new computer at the moment will really boil down to the fact that I have the Nonori games installed, and I only played the first Nonori game, 999, which has no connection to 9-9. So I'll need to make sure that gets installed again, so I remind myself to play it. Okay. Deal 4 damage to this guy.
Blood and pain awaken me.
It's the best I can do. Next we have a game on Steam here called Aeon Blood, which looks like it's a hack and slash game, side scroller. It's being tagged as a beat 'em up, although it's kind of hard to tag a game as a beat 'em up and have them have swords, at least in my mind. That I've never really thought of that as a beat 'em up. $8.99, discounted, English only. I'll put that on the fall list.
I lost. You're tough.
There was a tweet here from the National Video Game Museum. The Screw Attack cabinet, which Screw Attack, I guess, was a podcast that stopped doing something as far as I can tell, or maybe this was a G4 like show on something, if not internet streaming site, cable TV. But apparently it was pulled from being destroyed and was donated. It has all these kind of signatures over it. It clearly is a prop more than an actual game, and you can see that there's some pretty massive damage on this. Almost certainly this was a cabinet for something originally, and it just had been heavily modified. Like these zapper guns, for instance, unless you spent a lot of money, probably weren't working with the light screen, but maybe this bar was actually getting them to work. But yeah, not really knowing what Screw Attack is. This probably does have some relevancy. And it does certainly give me personally a bit of hope in the fact that it shows that the National Video Game Museum is not going out of business because of the pandemic, and there is actually a chance that they will accept donations of some level, because I personally have a lot of Nintendo memorabilia and stuff I'd like to get rid of / donate to the National Video Game Museum, and I've never really been able to tell if they were a long enough and funded enough group to actually handle what would be probably a pretty large donation, and whether or not they would just throw everything away. They may throw a lot of it away, but it would really suck if they threw everything away or just rejected it completely. But yeah, I have a full car, like half of a 2-car garage, floor to ceiling, full of boxes of Nintendo stuff that I have nowhere to put. And nothing to do with, and I don't want to have anything to do with it anyways. I spent a very long time, over a decade, collecting Nintendo and being obsessed about Nintendo, and I burned myself on that concept, and I don't hate Nintendo now, and I'd love to play modern, like, Switch games and things like that, but I'm not gonna be anywhere as obsessed as I once was. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Amazed, which I think this is probably an asset flip dungeon crawler. It definitely seems like it is just some random monsters and random maze elements. $10.79, English and Czech languages. You don't see a lot of games with Czech as the language. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article here. The App Store tweaks ease bugs fix process and lets developers pitch App Store guideline changes. So, in the midst of Epic and Fortnite causing trouble for the Apple App Store, it seems like that Apple, on the other hand, has made a few changes to the way they do things, which, yeah, getting that behemoth to do anything different is probably a small victory. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Battle Stage, which looks like a top-down twin-stick shooter, co-optional, early access $9.89, English only. Yeah, I don't see enough here to make this look like something I'd want to play. Like, even if this game does have a little bit of a visual polish to it, just a co-op twin-stick shooter and a low-effort name, that scares me away.
10. Hut.
Okay, what do we want to do now? If I evolve this, there'll be a 3/5.
Lend me your power, Golden Step.
And then you hit that.
Breach of contract, huh?
And yeah, I could play this. I could reduce the countdown by 1, but I don't want to do that. See, next we have a game on Steam called The Jungle, which is rated mostly negative. It does look like it is just another survival game. Early access for $11.99. English only, claiming to be rated by the ESRB, which we haven't seen too much of that lately. I don't even think people need to claim to be rated by the ESRB, particularly if you're going to claim to be rated M. Definitely, I did see a video that kind of talked about how there is a hardline stance you can definitely make, where the ESRB is just a censorship board, as much as the movie ratings board is a censorship board, in the sense that if you're not rated by the ESRB, you cannot sell your games in stores. Walmart, big stores like that won't sell your game. Thus, you are de facto being censored by a system that has been created in collaboration between the storefronts and the ESRB. And there's no secondary ratings or review store or self-certification system you can do to get your game sold. And this is where they certainly play games and confuse the issue by saying, well, it's Walmart's right to decide what they're going to sell. Fair enough. Kind of believe that too. Walmart should curate the quality of their games, but perhaps Walmart should not be allowed to curate the quality of their games based on whether or not you have a rating through the ESRB. And I would say the ESRB is probably way better than the movie, the MPAA. Anyways. Alright, let's just wrap up. Here, Matsuri has an article. Fin Inc., never heard of it. Home Fit has been announced for Switch, coming out October 29th in Japan. It does look like it is an exercise game that doesn't seem to really require any special accessories. But I imagine Ring Fit would be the better one to go with first, but I imagine a lot of people are just done with Ring Fit by now. We probably already talked about this. Call of Duty Warzone cheat site is being sued by Activision. Yeah, okay. That's believable and understandable. Here we have a game on Steam called Evergate, which is tagged as a puzzle platforming game. Come on, screenshots. So it's jumping around and getting a golden item, and then that letting you do another jump, I think. Yeah, you freeze time and you shoot yourself up, and you freeze time in other places and shoot yourself elsewhere. Looks like there's a lot of platforming here. I'm willing to give this a follow, but this definitely does feel like a game that's just going to be too much frustration. I like that scene transition though in the video. That was nice, from one level to the other. This is $16.99 with a bunch of languages supported. So yeah, I'll put it on the follow list. Let's see, Grisaya Phantom Trigger Volume 4 for Switch launches September 7th, which is what kind of game? A visual novel or a kinetic novel without any branching routes. I kind of think the idea of a kinetic novel without branching routes actually might make more sense to me. Frankly, like let's just go through the story quick and easy instead of playing it over and over again for different endings. Although, in all honesty, what makes the most sense is just not playing visual novels unless they're really, really good. Gamasutra has a blog here. We need to take Steam wishlist quality more seriously, which I take my wishlist very seriously. I have spent probably 100 hours curating what my wishlist is because I ask people to friend me and gift games off my wishlist to me as a way of supporting me. But this is a Gamasutra article definitely targeted towards game developers and game sellers. So you have questions like how many committed quote-unquote Steam wishlists does your game have? What streamer, YouTube, or Twitch interest has the game had? Which does your game immediately fail nowadays unless you can get some streamer to be interested in it? How busy are the communities, the Discord and Steam forums for the game? Although, what does that have anything to do with wishlist? A lot of these articles, I think, are written by just kind of nobodies, and they're just throwing out ridiculous, and they don't know what they're talking about, and they don't have real data. And at the end, it's the conclusion here is still get those wish lists, which of course, no duh. It would be ridiculous to tell people not to wish list your game, even if they aren't going to ever get around and actually play it or buy it. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called High Entropy, which they're calling an interactive sim. It looks like you are hacking and shooting and fighting robots and doing a lot of stealth missions. It's free, so I guess the price is right. 15 levels, a default ending, and a special ending if you finish 100% score. It's English and Spanish. It's not a student project, so I don't see any reason why I would want to cover this, but if High Entropy looks interesting to you, it doesn't look terrible for a free game by any means. And I'll just leave it at that. TechRaptor has an article here. A new KO the Kangaroo game bounces its way to Steam in 2021. So, alright. I don't know what KO the Kangaroo games are really, if they're platformers or not, or if there's some other kind of game. Guess there's a little teaser trailer just showing a bunch of crabs. 3D platformer legacy, a combination of jumping, boxing based combat, and exploration for hidden collectibles. Okay, that sounds like that might be interesting, although at a certain point I may be coming up to playing a game like that and not knowing anything about the previous games in that series, so I may be lost on the story. TechRaptor has an article here. Nintendo eShop now lets you cancel pre-orders up to 7 days before release. I wonder if there was actually a law that forced them into that, or if this is just Nintendo finally getting around to implementing something that should have been there day one. A interesting question, I suppose, should be, can you cancel pre-orders on the Epic Games Store? That would be my real question. Well, it's worth mentioning that this Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego game is still available on Steam. That means I've hit the point of the games that I was going to put on the fall list. I still don't have a clue when this game came out. This must have been something in like the 90s or maybe even early 2000s. There's some decent reviews and then there's some negative reviews. And I wonder if there is a lot of cases here where people are playing this game thinking it was the original Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego when it clearly isn't. And in all fairness, there's so many different variants of the first game anyways. You could have quite a whole collection there between like the Apple II version, which I'm sure there was, and maybe an NES version and a Super NES version and potential Atari version or Commodore 64 version. There almost certainly was a Sega Genesis, Master System, or Mega Drive version. I wouldn't be surprised if there was 2 or 3 games by the same name as Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego in general that were released over the decades. And that brings me to the Humble Bundle store, and I am not seeing any games bundles, but I am seeing a couple bundles that are going to end in a couple days, so you may see some on Friday, although I seem to be promising that quite a lot these days. And then that brings me back to my Twitter feed. Here we have an article. Oculus German sales have been temporarily paused. I wonder why that is the case. Let's see, the Gamma Sutra has an article how the Ori and the Will of Wisp composer outlines how he created the sequel's emotive score in a Q&A. Susan Wojcicki retweeted a New York Times article about a gaming grandma, which would be the first time in any recent history of Susan Wojcicki doing anything whatsoever to promote game streaming. I also think it's probably worth mentioning, spoiler for the last Batman game, apparently Batman is no longer in the picture, and so it would be quite a surprise if the Arkham Knights game brought Batman back. But also that's just a really dumb idea to get rid of Batman in general. There's really no way to do that. Susan Wojcicki also is retweeting a David Blaine Ascension video. David Blaine the magician. He doesn't need special advantages on YouTube at all. And it wouldn't be as big of an issue for Susan Wojcicki to pick and choose winners and promote people like she does on her Twitter if she wasn't actively hindering actual content creators, small time content creators, even medium content creators, and doing really nothing to support them, but also actively hindering them with decisions that she should be making and is refusing to make, or decisions she is making that she shouldn't be making. At the end, the fish rots from the head, so even if there aren't direct actions you can point to that she okayed, there definitely were direct actions that YouTube has done to make things more difficult for people. Here we have YouTube Gaming saying, assemble the ultimate basketball team, choose 5 characters from any game you think would be unstoppable, and then they've decided to use Lola Bunny as their GIF for that tweet, which don't know if YouTube gaming should be going a little bit adult, because I would imagine YouTube gaming should probably be child friendly. Apparently Fortnite ray tracing is coming soon. That's interesting, but also that would be probably not for the cell phones. Yeah, no way that's for the cell phones. And what else do we have? Sea of Thieves dogs are arriving September 9th. No reason to talk about that article any further than that. A Taiwanese cuisine visual novel called Food Girls is coming to the Switch on November 26th in Japan. There's a Destroy All Humans card game, according to TechRaptor. Cyberpunk 2077 landed 5 awards, including top honors at Gamescom 2020. You know, they didn't, I think, for the Gamescom presentation, really explain why certain games were getting awards, considering nobody was there to actually play the games. So they needed to say, hey, the people that ran the convention, our panel of judges, were given special access to play these games, and that's how we determined who was getting the awards. Or they should just be honest and say, hey, these awards are being handed out because they were bought and sold. As for the articles we do need to look deeper into, TechRaptor has this one. Oculus German sales are temporarily paused. Let's see. Apparently they aren't going to give a reason. We know it's an inconvenience, and we're actively working with German authorities to educate regulators on our practices. So, almost certainly, because Facebook owns Oculus and Germany owns laws that protect their citizens' privacy, they're in conflict, and so they are trying to punish Germany in the lightest way possible, I suppose, or because I don't think Facebook really has a lot of stick that they can use by stopping German citizens from buying Oculus VR headsets. Yeah, and I don't think that's going to teach them anything. This is Shirley Curry? Yeah, we've seen her. I thought last I had heard she had given up and taken a break. Though she was doing Skyrim and she got way more viewers than she really deserved, but I mean, people flock to her because she's a nice old lady. But at least from what I've heard, I haven't actually watched any of her videos. And I think she eventually just burned out, and she's old, so no surprise there. 84 is very old to be doing anything, even streaming Skyrim. Heck, there are times when I even feel like I'm a little too old to be streaming, because it takes a lot of mental energy. It doesn't take a ton of physical energy, although sitting and just talking are sometimes exhausting if you're going for several hours. But it takes a lot of mental energy to stay a streamer. See, here we have Yuminiki When They Cry Saku Nikobako to Maso no Hikyo Q, launching January 29th, 2021 in Japan, which the series here does not look like the When They Cry series, but maybe I'm confused there. It's a visual novel series, but it's a long-running visual novel series too. It's a fighting game spin-off of a visual novel series. Or it's a visual novel spin-off of the fighting game, I guess. And then here we have Kena Bridge of Spirits is Game Informer's issue 329 cover story, which this is a game I have not heard of. Kenna Bridge of Spirits. And then here we have TechRaptor's article here. Fortnite ray tracing is coming soon. RTX on and DL deep learning super sampling is also coming. Which, see if we can get a general idea. I suppose it is worth mentioning that there is a announcement for the 3000 series of NVIDIA graphics cards, where even the lowest level graphics card is being sold as being faster than the highest level graphics card of the 2000 series. So like the 3000 series is theoretically blowing them out of the water, but that in no way means that your current graphics card is garbage, or my 2080 RTX is garbage that I just bought less than a year ago is garbage. I have zero interest in upgrading to a 3000 series unless somebody was to give me one for free, and I certainly could probably put a couple graphics cards to use. But yeah, you gotta live with what you've got in a lot of ways. That definitely was a factor in picking all the parts for the computer I just bought, in that, yeah, I could have spent $6,000 or more to try and build the most powerful, newest computer components as possible, but that's ridiculous and a waste of money, and at the end of the day, that money was better spent on buying games, particularly when the vast majority of games still run perfectly fine on even a 980 or a 1060 NVIDIA graphics card. Most of the focus I did was building faster RAM and more RAM than trying to get the graphics to go any faster. And I may have even overbought on the RAM. I'm going to have to find out if I can actually overclock the RAM as fast as I would like based on the CPU that I have, or if I'm going to just have RAM that actually could have been overclocked higher than what it was. But at one point I was thinking of even going even faster, and I chose to get more RAM, 64 gigabytes in 4 slots versus 32 gigabytes that were faster. And that really comes down to Chrome taking up a massive amount of RAM. And also, if I ever use my new computer to be a server, having a massive amount of RAM will also be very useful. Well, that's going to be it for the stream. Sorry for the little break in the middle there. The daily missions, I will probably get around to doing these daily missions today. We only have probably a week if I stay committed to this week of doing the solo missions, and then everything else, well, then I can finally uncheck this box and just focus on multiplayer play. That's it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a gift card, or buy me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.